Hello, everybody. I hope everybody had a great day today. It was beautiful out, and hopefully you were able to get out and enjoy the weather. I get to talk to you tonight about livestock tools and equipment. This definitely does not encompass all the tools that we have available or use on the farm. This just kind of touches on some of those that are pretty important and you probably need to have in your toolbox. This program and the tools that we have purchased for this for show and tell were brought to you by a Missouri Beginning Farmers Grant through the United States Department of Agriculture and National Institute of Food and Agriculture. We partner with the AgriAbility Program and University of Missouri Extension and Brain Injury Association of Missouri for this. So when we went around and compiled this toolbox, we tried to find tools that were easy to handle and very practical. Something that you could find in your hometown at a local farm supply store. Some of them were purchased online simply to make sure that we had ease of finding as much as we could. We're not trying to promote any of these products or any of these companies. So just make sure to realize that we just picked program or tools that are readily available or maybe you can find locally. So we're going to start off by, so one of the most important tools I think is to be prepared, especially if you're calving, lambing, kidding, farrowing out animals. You need to have some tools to help with parturition, simply because that's one of those types of things we can't always get a vet out very quickly to ask for help, and we may need to do some of that ourselves. So if you're on the cattle side of it, and these are the things I highly recommend you have in your toolbox. One of them is a 30-inch and then a 60-inch obstetric chain. You can see the prices on those. In your handout, I also have where those items were purchased. And so you can kind of know where to go look for them, but that's certainly not the only place you can purchase these. I would highly recommend if you do purchase these obstetric chains that you get like a stainless steel or ones that don't rust. I think the ones in the picture here can tend to flake off and rust a little bit easier. So you may look for something if you do think you're going to use them more often to purchase something of a higher quality. Definitely have the handle. It's very hard to just pull a chain by yourself with just a bare hand, and the handle really makes a difference. Using that leverage and ergonomics. And then you can see Mississippi State, I borrowed this picture from them of how to put an obstetric chain on a calf's foot. It's extremely important to not cause damage to the hoof and to the leg of the calf as you're pulling it. So you can look up those. There's several pictures available or YouTube or whatnot, but that's kind of a picture to show you need a double hitch to put that on that calf before pulling it. In the swine realm and sheep and goats, there are OB snares that are available. The one at top is the one I have at home, and we have used before. It seems to be the easiest to handle. And then the one at the bottom I've also used, and I can't seem to find that online. It's pretty old, so that I doubt that's available anymore. And then always have lube. I found that this powdered lube, when you mix with water, it works really well. It's super slick. However, it may not always be available for you. You do have to mix it. But that powder does keep a while. And sometimes our lube tends to break down and become pretty watery. So this may be a viable option. Always have lube when you're trying to enter an animal and help pull. Lubricant is your friend in that aspect. So obstetric gloves are a must to protect not only you, but also the animal. It keeps your hands clean and protects you from their fluids. Definitely a must, whether they're just a small nitrile gloves that you see in the bottom, or your shoulder length gloves as you see at the top. There's different variations. I like the pink ones. They seem to be a little bit more sensitive. Most of the time using those for artificial insemination, but they're a definite must. And if you have pulled that calf and the heifer decides to not take the calf, you have yourself a bottle calf. So utilizing some of these tools can be very important. On the right, you see a fluid feeder where if you have to tube a calf, and they make smaller ones for sheep and goats, that is probably necessary for you to have. Hopefully you don't use it very often, but it is necessary in some instances. And then if you are looking for a better bottle, you can see the Little Giant calf bottle is probably the most common option. Most people have those bottles, but sometimes they're pretty hard to hold, especially once the calf gets older and a little more aggressive. They're going to knock that bottle out of your hands if you're not holding on pretty tight. And so sometimes it's a two-man job or two-hand job to hold that. The Peach Tea calf bottle has that handle on it, so it's a little easier to grab onto, a little smaller area. Arthritis can sit in sometimes in our hands pretty easily, and so that helps alleviate some of that trying to hold on to a bigger bottle. And then there's a calf bottle holder that works pretty well with your Little Giant bottle. So that's an option to not even have to hold the calf bottle. Ear tag applicators, there is a million out there. So I recommend going into a store and feeling which one is going to be the best for you. For example, we tag calves at birth, and sometimes those little boogers are hard to hold on to and tag them at the same time. So I go for a lightweight, easy to use tagger. The ones that flip out or quick release are a must, I think. I find that I don't rip as many ears out if I have those options on those taggers. So looking for those. The Y-Tex tagger, the orange one in the middle, and then the Z tagger both have quick release options, and I'm sure there's plenty more out there. The All-Flex Universal Total Tagger is a one that most people use also. It's very easy to use, very easy to squeeze. So it just depends on your tag preference. And research is out there that cows are going to lose tags regardless of which one you use. So use the one that works best for you, that you can handle and maneuver a little bit better. If you can see, the Y-Tex is a two-piece tagging system. So you have the button and then you have the actual visual tag. Sometimes those work with your RFID tags you can see in the bottom. And then the Z tagger on the left has kind of two different options. You'll see the regular tag up top. And I wanted to include a picture. On the bottom is a feedlot tag, and how you put that in the tagger to insert it. It took me a long time to figure out how to insert those little turkeys. I broke, I don't know how many tags of those feedlot tags trying to figure it out because I wanted to put it on like the regular tags do. So that little notch on the back of it is where you slide the needle in to insert that tag. Just a little FYI. Blank tags are always cheaper than your marked tags, and so a tag marker or marking ink may be necessary to make your own tags or add more information to that tag, maybe a birth date or a cow number. And then ear tag removers, they're more than just ear tag removers. You can use them in a banding system to cut some of those bands, and they're a nice little handy, cheap tool to have. Marking sticks, you may have to just mark an animal to sort off for sale or move to a different pen. So those are nice to have around also. And then switching to some of the swine tools that we use, the tooth nippers and pig ear notchers, both of those are fairly small, fit real well in my small hands. So looking for those tools if I'm going to notch a lot of ears on pigs or cut a lot of teeth or tails. I want to have something that's small that's not going to wear my hand out. calf bands, or you can use these for lamb tail dockings or banding lambs and sheep and goats. So there's a choice between your Producer's Pride band. That is a fairly small, lightweight bander. And then the Producer's Pride Premium Band Castrator. Honestly, I like the premium castrator because it's easier to squeeze. I have more leverage with than I do with the small castrator. You would think the small one would be better, but the bigger one fits in my hand, and I didn't know that until I went and tried both out. So it's a good thing to go and check those out. And then on the right, you see the bands that go along with those. Now, these are the smaller banders for smaller animals. You can have the bigger ones for older animals. Those are definitely bulky. And if you look, those bands cost about $2 a piece, somewhere around in there. And you're looking at 2 cents for the green bands. So, or even less. So that's something to think about when you're thinking about banding. Syringes and vaccinators, extremely important in raising livestock. You're going to have to vaccinate or give some sort of medication at some point in time. If you're the one doing that, find syringes and vaccinators that work for you, especially if you have a large number of animals to go through the chute. The one at the top left is my favorite. That is my hand. I have a very small hand, and I can use that one for a good half the day and not wear my hand out. The Primatech I've also used. I like it also, but the Allflex is my favorite. I do use the pistol grip repeater syringes, but eventually that does wear my hand out. It's just a little heavier, a little more squeeze, a little harder to squeeze. And so just a thought, if you're the one doing the vaccinating, find a syringe that works for you very well. The slap shot vaccinator, and I'm sure Dr. Corin Bromfield is smiling behind her computer screen. She really likes this, I've heard. And they work really well for if you're not going to confine animals to give shots. As you can see in the picture, giving pigs shots. You're going to give that pig a shot and then mark it that you did give it a shot. They work really well. You can use it with a repeater syringe or just a disposable syringe, and a definite must if you're not confining animals. Moving on to some hoof and leg care. Again, your hoof trimmers, if you're trimming the feet of sheep and goats, it is a must to have something that fits in your hand very well, that works very well. It doesn't wear out your hand. You may be going through quite a few head that you have to trim, and you got to do it for a while, so you need to be very comfortable with that. So trying several out in your hand is very necessary. Elastic bandages are one of those that there's always a spot for them somewhere. Granted, you put those on an animal and they don't always stay on, but the flexible ones stay for a while. At least they're going to do some good. Some animal handling aids that I think are very necessary for swine. Get yourself a sorting panel, and get one that fits you also. The one, I have a yardstick beside this one. It's not very tall, very lightweight, and still does a really good job. As you can see in the picture on the right, those are quite a bit larger, a little bit harder to handle. So if you're struggling to handle something large, get something that fits you. It's going to be a lot more efficient, and you're going to be more effective if you can move that board around, as opposed to maybe not making it to block that pig off in time. Sorting sticks or whips are extremely necessary, I think, when working, especially your larger cattle. The main thing about sorting sticks is they give you a little more reach, protect you from getting kicked. Sometimes our animals are very calm, and don't want to move real well, but they still may be inclined to reach out and touch you every once in a while if you lay a hand on them. They're not that comfortable. And so you may think about getting one of these sticks, the Weaver sorting pole. I like it feels good in your hand. However, it is a little tall for me. I'm only about 5'5", so I want something that's a little shorter than what most of us can purchase. And so I tend to look for sticks that are a little shorter. The flag sticks, I think, are an amazing tool. I wish they would have came out with those a lot sooner, or I would have thought to include the or make my own. They are a great visual deterrent. They're not something that you're going to use to stop an animal if they don't want to, but for those animals that are a little more impressionable about visual deterrent, then these flag whips are great. The key is you got to use them very slow and calm. You can snap them and it makes a snapping noise to let the animals know that you're there. But the key is to don't use them too often to where it really gets the cattle stirred up, or sheep and goats or whatnot. You don't want to scare them, you just want to stop them. There is a catch hook that can be used for sheep and goats. It also can be used to catch calves, and could be very easy to use. This one was a little tall for me. It is metal. They make plastic ones that work just as well. I've used them, like I had said before, we tag calves. And at birth, and sometimes they're a good tool to have to reach out and grab the leg of the calf and at least slow it down to where I can get a hand on it. I don't want to hold the calf with it, but at least it slows it down to where I can grab a hold of something else, whether it be the tail or the flank, to get that tag in the ear. But it does give you that little extra reach. Sometimes you just need just a little inch more, and this really does the trick. Halters are always a good thing. This is a nylon halter, typically for animals that maybe already broke to lead. Rope halters are good to have, to maybe hold the head of an animal kind of stationary, even those ones that are not broke to lead. So choose those wisely. Make sure that you get a fairly decent one that will at least not get too tight on the animal and you not be able to get it off. We've had situations where we've had to cut a halter off because it got too tight. In the horse world, lunge whips are definitely necessary. And I'm going to admit I'm not a well-versed horse person. This was purchased with the advice of some of my livestock coworkers, and so I don't have a whole lot to add to that, but I do know that they use them very frequently. Tools are something that maybe us as ladies don't get so excited about. You usually can find those laying around the house if you have somebody that has a toolbox of their own, maybe your husband or a brother or whatnot. However, I highly recommend having your own toolbox, finding tools that fit you. And for example, if you see the lineman's pliers below, they make a couple different sizes in those. I like the small ones. These are the smaller size. My husband likes the larger ones because his hands are quite a bit larger than mine. And so having your own tools, if we're cutting wire or tearing out fence, I want something that doesn't wear my hand out, that fits my hand. So that's something to think about. Bolt cutters are something you can use for multiple things. These are really nice because they have a rubber handle and they do fold up and fit into a smaller space. Have your own pocket knife. This one's really nice. It's a little larger. It has the locking blade. I recommend that. However, it doesn't always fit in your pocket very well, so it may be something that you want something a little smaller. And then a hammer. Again, my husband and I differ on which hammer we like. I like a smaller one. He wants a larger one. But you really need to have your own tools. and find the ones that fit best for you. Gloves. Karen Funkenbush had talked about gloves in her ergonomic tool talk a little bit in the first session. These are a must-have, whether it is something that protects your hand or keeps them warm. Buy a good pair of gloves that fit you. I am always shopping for gloves. Anytime I go to a farm supply store, I try on gloves. I want to find something that fits my hand, which is a nightmare. I am a women's medium, men's small. And so they always have large, extra large gloves available, and it's extremely hard to find my size. Once you find a pair of gloves, Google it, find a bunch of them, buy a bunch of them, something, because I'll lose one and it's like a bad day if you lose a glove that you really love. You can see these gloves all have some sort of padding in the palm that really helps with fatigue. If you were at the Pearls of Production, where Carrie Portell talked about ergonomic gloves and how they really help with her fatigue, anti-vibration gloves. It's amazing the difference that they have. I realize in the summertime they're hot, but find something that fits you. It really does make a difference when you have a pair of gloves. Before, when we were working cattle, I'm usually running the head chute. A pair of gloves makes all the difference in the world when I'm running that head chute. You know, the constant vibration when the chute closes, and I have started wearing gloves all the time. There's just a few little things out there that just really make life a lot easier. One of these is a gate wheel. I am usually the gate opener in our family, and if not me, it's the kids. These are so much nicer on your back. You don't have to carry that gate around every time you open it. The wheel just glides right along. Granted, that is if the gate is in working order and the cows haven't bent it up or the wind hasn't caught it and flung it and bent the hinges. But most of the time, these things work like a dream. And I highly recommend putting it on a lot of your heavy gates, and it really makes your life a lot easier. So some final thoughts, and I had mentioned this before. Go feel out those tools. Feel them in your hand. Feel how heavy they are. Feel how balanced they are. It makes a huge difference. You know, Black Friday's coming up. A lot of places, your farm supply stores may not necessarily, but some of your bigger box chains, Lowe's and Home Depot and Orscheln's, they throw sales on and tools. And sometimes the tools that they put on sale are the kind the men won't buy, but we do because they fit our hands. They're going to be the odd tools. Go seek those out. You can make your own toolbox and then hide that sucker, because they're going to get into it. They're going to need a pair of pliers and they're going to grab it. And if you're like my husband, he lays them down in certain places and I don't know where they're at. And so I have my own toolbox and I hide it. I bring it out when I need it, and I try to make sure everything's back in, and I hide it again when we're done. So it's a little bit more challenging to lose those tools that I really, really like. Buy those pink and purple colors. They're less likely your husband's going to go and grab a purple hammer or a pink pair of gloves. I know I have 2 boys, and they wouldn't be caught dead wearing a pink pair of gloves. So I try to buy colors that they know they're mine, and they know that they're not going to touch those, and they're going to be there when I go to look for them. One last thing, and this is going back to making your life easier. Lubricate those tools, lubricate your head chute, hinges, buy a bottle of WD-40 or 3-in-1 oil or whatever your lubrication of choice is, and make sure things are lubricated. They're going to work so much better. You don't have to work harder when things are running a little more smooth. So ergonomic tools or tools that fit us may be a little bit more pricey, but you are definitely worth it. Your health is definitely worth it. If you're the one giving the vaccinations or if you're the one running the chute, or you're the one going to go out and fix fence, you may as well enjoy it. Those tools that fit you are going to make it so much more enjoyable, so much better. And you're going to enjoy farming. We, necessarily don't farm for the money. So we may as well enjoy it as much as possible. And with that, I would like to, again, thank the grant for helping purchase these tools. But if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
So first of all, Kendra, can you clarify what a quick release tagger entails?
So the quick release tagger is more or less where the pin kind of flips forward after you tag the animal, and you can just pull straight out. You don't have to somehow kind of unclog or maneuver to pull that. You can just tag and pull away. So it again, that pin flips forward and releases that tag fairly easily. Does that make sense? Whoever answered it or asked the question.
Well, it does make sense to me. Thank you for that. Our second question, OB chains and snares. Where can we go to learn how to place these correctly? You showed us how to place the chains on the calf leg, but what about the piglet or the lamb snares? I've heard that if we do it wrong, it might be worse than not doing anything at all.
Correct. To be honest, I learned, especially on the pig snares, just by YouTube. I Googled a YouTube video and kind of watched how to do that. I know we have done some of that in past pearls or production programs. So that may be something that we can add to our list to give demonstrations on. And for pigs, you want to try to not basically choke the animal. So maybe putting that snare behind the ears and tightening it up instead of making the snare to where it goes under the throat. The back part of the snare is your best bet. They make other pig pullers, but the snare seems to be the easiest to maneuver around in the sow. For calves, we have done in calving clinics. Sometimes I know Heather has offered calving clinics before, and we've had some of that in pearls of production. So hopefully we can continue with some of those, and that would be a great topic to add to our list again.
Excellent, excellent. So what are your recommended must-have tools for fence repair?
I didn't go into that on purpose, simply because there's so many options out there, so many different types of fences. We run a lot of high tensile electric. So the lineman's pliers that you saw we have one in every four-wheeler, every side-by-side. We have multiples of those. You can grab a hot electric fence and not get shocked with those. So that would be number one for sure. The second one would be a electric fence tester, to know that if the fence is on or not. A nice little tool to save you a little bit of a heart attack. Otherwise, fence stretchers for barbed wire. It just really depends on what type of fence you have. Barbed wire and high tensile are probably the two most common. If you do a lot of a high tensile, you could definitely have either splices and then a splicing tool, a crimping tool. We have one that is actually fairly large. I was going to put some of that on there, but we were going to run long on, I think, some of the time tonight. The splicing tool that or the crimping tool that I use is quite large. It is probably 3 foot tall, and the reason why I like the larger one, it gives me more leverage. The Gallagher makes a small orange one, and when I do use that, I almost have to put some sort of pressure against my body on one side and then pull down with the other, and it doesn't give me enough leverage, and I'm constantly struggling to crimp those sleeves. Tighteners, if you use tighteners, you're going to need to have an adjustable end wrench with you to tighten those fences up. A nice big hammer to maybe drive in some posts, a post driver, post puller. That's just to name a few, and maybe we just need to do a whole session on fence building.
That would be excellent, actually. Um, you showed us a tag marker. Can you use Sharpies for marking tags?
Sharpies don't work near as well. They don't penetrate the tag. The Z tag marker that I showed is okay. They tend to fade. Sharpies really fade. So, even going towards your Witex, the actual ink, may be a little bit better option to try to get tag penetration. Somebody showed me a trick also that if you use the ink, like in the Witex bottle, you put that ink on the tag and then throw it in the microwave for a couple seconds, and it kind of bakes it in there. Now you're going to have to probably do a few test runs, one to see how fast your tag curls in there. I've curled a many tags trying to figure out when I've changed microwaves how long I can put it on. But that seems to work real well. It kind of bakes it into the tag and they don't fade as bad.
Excellent. I got 2 more questions for you. So for calf banding, what size or age of animal are the smaller bands used on? The green Cheerios you showed us.
So the green Cheerios, once you get a calf much above 3 months, you probably can't use those green bands. You're going to have to use the larger ones. Sometimes you can get lucky and get those suckers to fall into those green bands, but most of the time, once a calf gets a much above 3 months, and I think even on the bands they say 2 months, so something to be prepared to have larger bands, and maybe another bander that uses larger bands. If you do maybe wait a little bit longer to band those calves, or if you have one slip through, sometimes it never fails that sometimes you have one born a little late and you've already worked that group, and so they're going to be a little older when you band them. Just have those as a backup.
Excellent. All right. Well, I got one more question okay, we've got a couple more questions coming in. So the first question, with the repeater syringes and vaccinators, what's the difference between the automatic draw off and you showed a pistol grip that didn't have a draw off on it?
So the pistol grip, depending on what size you get, they make them in 25 cc's and 50 cc's. They're only going to hold that amount of vaccine or medicine or whatever you put in it. So you're going to constantly have to refill those once you're out. The draw off syringe, you actually attach the bottle to the end of the hose, and you have vaccine until you empty the bottle. And so the draw off syringes are very similar to if you use injectable dewormer. Those are attached using a draw off, usually come with some sort of draw off type syringe. And so that's the difference. You can go a lot longer with the draw off versus having to keep filling the pistol grip syringe. However, I do want to note, if you are giving modified live vaccines, you have to mix those. Your best bet is to have the pistol grip syringe, unless you're doing really large quantities. Sometimes they make those mixable vaccines in really large bottles, but most of the time we're getting the 10 dose bottles and mixing those, and your pistol grip is probably your best option for that.
Excellent. And then our last question, so you said that we've done some demonstrations of these things previously. Are any of them recorded? Do we have them available?
So 2019, last year, was the first time we've done the demonstration with the tools. My goal is to make some recordings using some of these tools. That was one of our items on the agenda for this year with our beginning farmer grant. And we've been a little bit thrown for a loop with COVID, and not being able to interact like we want to. But definitely it is in the works, and I hope with this grant we're able to continue on and doing some of those demonstrations with these tools.
Excellent. So I just had one final thing come in. Do we have any information or resources like vaccine coolers, places where we can keep vaccines cool as we're using them?
Right off the top of my hand, right off the top of my head, I don't know of a place to refer you to. We can look into that. I do know, keeping vaccines cool, having a cooler. They make the ones where the syringes fit in there. And so not only is your vaccine cool in the cooler, but also your syringes stay cool. Those manufacturers make those. You can make those yourself. Both my sons have made one. They just took a cheap Walmart cooler and put a hole in the lid, and then used some tubing and kind of glued in there to where those syringes kind of sit in there. And it works great. You can use your PVC pipe that is threaded and kind of put caps on the holes that you aren't using if you're maybe just giving one vaccine. So it really keeps the temperature kind of cool in there. I'm sure we looked up a YouTube video on how to make those. So I'm sure they're pretty easy. If you haven't known, I like YouTube. When my husband's not around and I'm stuck trying to figure out how to do something, I hurry up and YouTube it. So your phone is a great tool to have. If you have a smartphone, it is excellent to have out in the field.
Fantastic. Well, I would just like to say that, yes, I was definitely smiling when you told us all about the slap shots. Those are a fantastic tool to extend your reach and really save your hands.
Most definitely.
All right. And that's all the questions I have.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Perfect. Thank you again, Kendra.